Hello, everyone. Yet another anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, full scale invasion of Ukraine, is never an easy day. It's particularly not easy since it's also my birthday. So, now that we have gone over all the various summaries, looked at the numbers, looked at the actions, looked at all the various events, let's go back to what is happening now. What type of news is coming from Russia, from Ukraine, and the relevant events. Let's start with this one. So this is on the BBC website, but I want to point out, I'm not by any means demeaning the, fact that BBC is publishing the story, but I want to point out that Russian officers executing their own troops has been going on for some time. It is possible that now that a major source outside Ukraine has broken the story, somebody respectable like BBC, maybe they will finally believe Ukrainian sources. Mostly stories like this came from Ukrainian soldiers who got to witness this. Now, this is coming from Russian soldiers. And here's what we know so far. There have been instances of, first of all, torture of Russian soldiers by their own commanders if they showed any kind of hesitation about going into battle due to being possibly poorly equipped. That has happened. Also, at any suggestion of surrender. And there have been instances of commanders executing soldiers because they were wounded, and the rest of the troops were retreating at the time. So, this is not an isolated incident. This has been going on for a while, and incidentally, it's not just Russian nationals. This has been done to the foreign soldiers who signed up to fight for the Russian army. There is a big article on the Guardian website talking about an analysis done by a military think tank that insists that Russia can keep fighting throughout 2026. I would probably add one caveat, unless something changes drastically. Do I like it? No. But these people are well versed in military, in politics, in military politics. And so I defer to the experts. What they bring up is valid. They're talking about the dramatic increases in Russia's military spending. I pointed out in the past that also means that other areas of Russian economy are suffering because everything is poured into the war. So this is an interesting bit right here. Right now, Russia's military spending is about 7.3 of Russia's gross domestic product, which is double the proportion spent by the US. So, that is a very sobering number. Now, they did talk about the potential impacts on the economy. They did talk about the slowing down of the recruitment, which is a challenge for Russia right now. And they did mention the losses, but let's not forget, Ukraine is struggling too. Ukraine is doubly struggling because, first of all, the war is happening on Ukrainian soil. Russia is attacking Ukrainian civilians. So it's basically like having a war on two different fronts, because there is the, war at the front with the military involved. And then there's all the shit that's happening at home and all of that. And that has its effect. So here's the thing. I can only assume that this analysis that they did was carried out assuming everything remains as is. So this does not include a possibility of, for example, introducing foreign troops or any type of overthrow of power in Russia or anything like that. So I'm not trying to put on, rose-colored glasses, not at all. What these people are saying is valid. But again, let's assume that the conditions for the analysis they present is if things go as they have been going so far. There is this piece on CNBC website. Guys, it's a little bit late to be asking this question. You should have started asking this back in 2014 when Russia had annexed Crimea. Is Europe ready for its own army? Come on. I mean, it's a good question, but this should have been considered a long time ago. And this is, incidentally, one of the frustrations for those of us following the war in Ukraine, because logically, as soon as this crap started, especially as soon as the full-scale invasion started, Europe should have been mobilizing. And that is when the question about having their own army should have been raised. I don't know what they were hoping for, but this shouldn't even be a question. This should be happening already. UK, what are you doing, guys? Okay, what is this all about? So this is on the Kyiv Independent website. Talking about the latest package of sanctions against Russia by the United Kingdom. But here's the thing. They decided to exempt the Druzhba oil pipeline. That's the one that goes across Ukraine and into Hungary. That's the one that Hungary and Slovakia have been blackmailing Ukraine over. I'm like, why? Come on, guys. You know that oil is one of the big things that keeps this war going. Why are you excluding that from the sanctions? Be reasonable. Well, this is a bit of an understatement of the century. After 4 years, Russia admits war goals not fully achieved. Really? So if anyone were to read various messages on social media, specifically, usually Telegram is a good one. Russians were like, "Oh, we'll be washing our feet in the Thames anytime now." I'm serious. That was a thing. But there was no parade in Kyiv. They couldn't even get to Kyiv. And 4 years later, things are not looking so hot. And particularly, contrary to their expectations, Ukrainians are not interested in Russia's presence. They don't want to be saved. There is another plan in the works by Ukraine that is more realistic than anything I've seen so far, which basically includes what Ukraine has been doing already. Strengthening air defenses, halting advances, increasing economic pressure, and so on. So this is what Ukraine is already doing. A little help would be nice. And Ukraine used ATACMS to hit some Russian command and logistics facilities in the occupied territories, and good on them. I think that's a valid use of a valuable weapon. If they don't like getting their facilities hit, they should get the fuck out. More to come.